The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited.
I was thinking, Scott, about what you were saying about the Rentier State. I recognize that, and Trump, by the way, is certainly exploring third term. I don't know if you saw the Kristen Welker interview with him, where Trump was asked, apparently the Constitution says you cannot be elected for a third term. It doesn't say you can't serve a third term. And I've listened to various attorneys who have said, well, reading that, taken from a literal standpoint, potentially if Trump were to be elected Speaker of the House and then he got two sycophants to run for president and vice president and then they both stepped down, theoretically, Trump could serve a third term. Whether he would qualify to run as vice president and then have someone else run for president and then that person steps aside. But Trump said no when Kristen Welker asked him to elaborate on how he might go about running for a third term.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of acclamation for people who go like, we need a third term from Trump. He may not even make it into the first half of his second presidency. I mean, the country is becoming a disaster, and at some point or another, people are going to finally catch on, I think. But
I agree, but he's not going to go willingly. He's going to have to be forced out.
Yeah, I mean, it is certainly possible that he just passes away in office. He's an older guy. He doesn't look to be in the best shape in the world. So that we could always hope that he just quietly goes somehow and we can move on with our lives and never have to say that name again.
You think Vance would be any better?
I mean,
look how he's behaving.
Yeah, but I think Vance lacks the thing that Trump has. And so even if he was president for a while, I don't think there's a good chance that he would actually win on his own. I'm pretty sure he would not. Yeah, he doesn't have that charisma that Trump has for some people. He doesn't have it for me, but he definitely has it for some people. I don't think Vance has any of that. He's just kind of weird. Vance is just weird, unpleasant person with no charisma and a seriously creepy vibe about him that I think people would turn away from. But I do want to just shift this a little bit because I think while you guys were talking, I was thinking about the way that tech people were, right, in the last summer mostly as we went in towards this election in the fall, how they were saying that the Biden administration was stifling free speech and that they couldn't get on the internet and complain about things the way they used to, and that trying to have a government agency, as Biden tried to have, that was in charge of fact checking people or trying to get rid of mis or disinformation was a form of censorship and so on and so forth. And where we are now with DEI firing, right? So apparently the head of the NSA was fired yesterday afternoon or evening because he's not moved quickly enough to eliminate DEI, which is diversity, equity, and what's the I again? Inclusion, right? At the NSA. And I was just thinking, like, that's such a weird reason to fire somebody who's in charge of the NSA, which is an enormous agency that monitors every single phone call that's made throughout the world, or every email or text message that's sent, and probably has massive AI use in tracking people and trying to keep us safe. And because Lisa Loomer, I think it is her name,
Laura,
or Laura
Laura Loomer.
Loomer,
Yeah, I think
Laura
there were
Loomer.
7 people fired from the NSC because Laura Loomer said, "Oh, they're not sufficiently loyal."
Right.
Wasn't the head of the Coast Guard, who happened to be a woman? She was fired also because she didn't get rid of DEI or some such twiddle twaddle.
Yeah. So, like Mark likes to say, you get the country you deserve. I guess these people who are chafing under the yoke of the Biden administration must be really unhappy now. And it might be things that they don't really care about, like DEI may not be foremost on their mind, but I think that they would have to admit that if you don't say things or do things that Trump wants you to do, you're going to get fired, you're going to lose your funding, you're going to come under some kind of attack one way or another, is an extreme form of censorship that is good. If it hasn't gotten to them yet, it will eventually. He'll get to you. And what are you going to say then?
I don't know. Really, I don't know. The idea of, as you say, Scott, the idea that at one point in time they said if they were taking disinformation off of the internet and trying to combat disinformation and misinformation, that was stifling free speech. Well, isn't stifling DEI, isn't that also stifling free speech and free thought? So it seems that it's okay if what we don't like is stifled. But if it's something we do like misinformation and disinformation and lies, then no, we want that to be out there to influence the people. And the thing that gets me is people just don't see it that way. This is an obvious attempt to get people to be stupid and to fall in line. It is so obvious that they're trying to control the information that they want. They're trying to control what you think and how you think. If you do not think the way they do, then you're the enemy, you're the evil. And to me, we have so many examples from history where this has happened, and we simply just don't seem to want to learn from it. It absolutely boggles my mind.
You see where the 3 professors have left Yale and gone to Toronto
Yeah,
because of and they're experts on authoritarianism, and
sure.
they see where the nation is going.
Yeah, I
And
guess
I thought that, hmm?
yeah, they would be the ones to catch on first, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking about the way the country is going and how safe is safe, knowing that intellectuals and professors are among the first not to be safe. We've been talking about this for several years at this point. I think if Trump were to come back into power, we were well aware of being targeted at some point. And I noticed that the deportations continue, and there was a family in Saxville, which happens to be very close to where Tom Homan grew up. I think it's Sackettsville, New York, which is up north, eastern side of Lake Ontario, including a child in 3rd grade. So the child would be about 8, who were roused in the morning, 3 children and their mother, who were roused in the morning and taken out of their beds and handcuffed and taken to Texas as part of a raid for someone else who worked on this particular farm. So that was the people in the community would like the family back. So I mean, all this stuff continues, and the Judge Boasberg is getting very tired of the administration saying, well, Judge Boasberg is still at the with the case of the planes, the original planes, taking the original people, Venezuelans who were supposed to be claimed by the Trump regime to have been gang members. Judge Boasberg is still getting to the bottom of who was in authority, and who ordered the planes to continue flying, rather than turning them around the way he told them to, and therefore was in violation of the law. So that is still being pursued. But of course, the administration is saying, well, we can't, or the regime is saying, well, we can't get anybody back.
Yeah, unless it's those two brothers that he got back, right? I guess they got those guys back.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they got them back.
The Tate brothers, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and of course they're criminals. And you also notice that Trump is pardoning a lot of white collar criminals.
Oh yeah, whole companies, right? Corporations.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be outdone, JD Vance, as we mentioned before, put out a tweet out there about the guy from Maryland who got sent to El Salvador for no good reason at all. And he wrote in a tweet, in 2019, an immigration judge under the Biden administration determined that the deported man was in fact a member of the MS-13 gang and had apparently multiple traffic violations for which he appeared to fail to appear in court, a real winner. That's a quote from JD Vance. He wrote it and he put it out there, not seeming to understand that in 2019, Biden was not president, Trump was president. And so the immigration judge, as it were, who, was not under the Biden administration, was under the Trump administration. And that guy, was adjudicated by the judge to actually be threatened by going back to El Salvador, and was given protected status because of it. But Tom Homan just ignored that. And he says it's an administrative mistake, but I think that that's bullshit. It was not a mistake. He did it on purpose. And he sent them down there, and now they said that they can't get him back, which is really, really tragic and very sad. And by the way, you mentioned the college professors. And a lot of scientists are on the verge of picking up and going to other countries where they can get their projects funded for the good of humanity. And what we're going to be seeing pretty soon, I think, is a brain drain. We're gonna, the smartest people who want to do research and want to make new discoveries and innovation are going to have to leave the United States to go elsewhere to ply their trade, and it is going to make the United States that much more weaker than we are now. Crazy stuff.
I agree. Okay.
Well, I agree fully. And I agree with you, Scott, that this was not a mistake. The man in Maryland. I think it's tragic that Trump and his people still have as much support as they do from the public. I don't understand. I don't understand it, that people cannot make the conceptual leap from failing to give people who are here legally, who have the same due process rights as any of us who were born here does, to taking away our rights as well. And they don't seem to be able to do that. And of course, Trump has built up the enemy within, and Vance has as well, the enemy within, the enemy of the people, journalists and professors and universities and so forth. And eventually they're going to run out of illegals and people who can have their green cards taken away by Rubio. And that was so disingenuous. I don't know if you heard that. Rubio was asked, and I don't know which person it was, some poor graduate student It may have been the young woman at Tufts. I'm not sure which one it was. Rubio was asked why she was arrested, and he said, well, she was here, or he didn't have legal status because the person didn't have a green card or didn't have the student visa. Well, no, he had taken that away. So he dodged the question. I mean, the reason, of course, the question really was, why did he take that away? But he said, well, the person was arrested because the person didn't have the proper documentation. Well, no, the reason the person didn't have the documentation is because he had taken that away. So why did he take that away? Well, that's part of the question that did not directly get asked, and he did not answer that. And of course, he did it because that's what Trump wants, and he's just knuckling under. I mean, the whole thing is absolutely rotten. It's sickening.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be like a anti-truth versus truth-seeking dichotomy going on in the country right now. Like anybody who's in the truth-seeking business, as you pointed out, whether it's reporters or college professors, researchers, scientists, they are the enemies of the people. And anybody who just goes along with whatever Trump setting the tone from the top wants seems, no matter how unreal it is, seems to be on the good side, which brings me to the nominee for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff had a hearing this week, and during the hearing they brought up the qualification that he has, which was that according to Trump, he put on a MAGA hat at an overseas air base or something and told when Trump was visiting and said, Mr. Trump, sir, I would die for you, or something along those lines. And that was his qualification. Trump never forgot that. And when he had an opening for the chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, nominated this guy, General Kane. And Kane, in his hearing this week, denied that it was him, said he must have been talking about somebody else, because I would never put on any kind of political merchandise at all. That would be a violation of my oath and my commitment to my commission in the Army. So that was kind of an interesting thing. We'll have to wait and see what happens to Dan Raisin Kane, the nominee for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
And there we have it.
Oh, well, thank you both, and thank you to all our listeners. And we look forward to having you spend some time with us again on the Nova Society.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening!